Eric and Lyle Menendez, the infamous brothers. The savagery of their crime, the murders of both their mother and father, seem beyond comprehension.
August 23rd, 2025. A prison conference room. Two words that would shatter decades of hope. Parole denied.
Late last night, Lyle Menendez was denied parole after a day-long hearing in California.
After 36 years behind bars, Lyle Menendez heard those crushing words just 24 hours after his brother Eric faced the same verdict. The Menendez brothers, once America's most notorious siblings, remain locked away, their freedom slipping through their fingers like sand. But this isn't just another true crime story. This is about power, trauma, justice, and the thin line between victim and perpetrator. What really happened in that Beverly Hills mansion on August 20th, 1989? And why, after all these years, does their story still electrify the world? Because some secrets refuse to stay buried. Beverly Hills, 1989. Behind the gates of 722 North Elm Drive stood a $5 million mansion home to the American dream turned nightmare. Jose Menendez, a ruthless entertainment executive who clawed his way from Cuba to corporate power. Kitty Menendez, former beauty queen turned devoted mother. Their sons Lyle, 21, Princeton dropout with expensive tastes, and Eric, 18, talented tennis player with professional aspirations. On August 20th, the family's perfect facade shattered. Jose and Kitty were found dead in their den, bodies torn apart by close-range shotgun blasts, 15 shots fired with military precision. The crime scene was so brutal that seasoned detectives couldn't stomach the photographs. Initially, the brothers weren't suspects. They called 911, sobbing into the phone. "Someone killed our parents!" The investigation focused on Jose's business dealings. The man had made enemies climbing the corporate ladder at RCA Records and Live Entertainment. Perhaps it was the mob, maybe a disgruntled business partner. But the brothers' behavior raised eyebrows. Within months, they'd burned through $700,000 in inheritance money. Rolex watches, luxury cars, courtside Lakers tickets, a restaurant investment. Eric hired a full-time tennis coach for $50,000. Lyle bought a Porsche and moved into a Princeton apartment. The mask slipped when Eric confessed to his therapist, Dr. Jerome Oziel, during a session 6 months after the murders. That confession would become the smoking gun that destroyed their lives. March 1990. The arrests sent shockwaves through Beverly Hills. The golden boys of privilege now accused of matricide and patricide. But their defense would be even more explosive than the crime itself. Defense attorney Leslie Abramson presented a revolutionary strategy. The brothers were victims, not villain. For years, Jose had sexually, physically, and emotionally abused both sons. Kitty knew and did nothing. On that August night, they claimed, it wasn't murder, it was survival.
I was scared. I didn't know what he was going to do. I'd never seen that happen before.
Eric's testimony electrified the courtroom. Detailed accounts of molestation beginning at age 6.
My dad had been molesting me.
And how was that going to end the sex with your dad?
Forced oral sex. Threats of death if he told anyone. Lyle corroborated every horrific detail.
We would be in the bathroom, and he would put me on my knees, and he would guide me, all my movements, and I would have oral sex with him.
Adding that Jose had raped him until age 8, then turned his attention entirely to Eric. The prosecution painted a different picture. Spoiled rich kids who killed for money. They pointed to the spending spree, the lack of immediate confession, the calculated nature of the shotgun purchase. District Attorney Pam Bozanich called it the performance of their lives. The first trial, beginning in 1993, ended in hung juries for both brothers. The abuse testimony had created reasonable doubt. America was split down the middle. Some saw traumatized children finally fighting back. Others saw manipulative killers exploiting sympathy. The second trial in 1995 changed everything. Judge Stanley Weisberg severely limited abuse testimony, ruling much of it hearsay. Without the emotional impact of detailed abuse accounts, the jury focused on premeditation and motive. On March 20th, 1996, both brothers were found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without possibility of parole. But their story was far from over. The Menendez case became America's first true crime television obsession. Court TV broadcast every moment live. The brothers' handsome faces and tragic testimony captivated millions. Saturday Night Live parodied them. Talk shows debated their guilt. They became cultural icon symbols of privilege, trauma, and the American justice system's complexity. Decades passed. The brothers remained in separate prisons, their story relegated to true crime documentaries and late-night television reruns.
Growing closer as brothers.
Then came 2024. Netflix released Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, created by Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan. Suddenly, a new generation discovered their case. Social media exploded with Menendez Brothers hashtags. TikTok users analyzed courtroom footage. Generation Z, armed with modern understanding of trauma and abuse, viewed the brothers through a completely different lens. The series sparked fierce debate about the portrayal of abuse victims and the ethics of true crime entertainment. Eric Menendez himself criticized the show from prison, calling certain scenes blatant lies and expressing frustration with what he saw as character assassination. But the cultural impact was undeniable. Celebrities like Kim Kardashian advocated for their release. Petitions garnered hundreds of thousands of signatures. The brothers, now in their 50s, found themselves thrust back into the spotlight after decades of obscurity. This renewed attention would prove crucial for their legal future. May 14th, 2025. After 35 years behind bars, hope finally. Los Angeles County Judge Michael Jesses sentenced Eric and Lyle Menendez to 50 years to life under California's youthful offender laws. Both brothers were under 26 when they committed the murders, making them eligible for this consideration. The resentencing wasn't based on innocence claims, but on their rehabilitation and behavior in prison. Both brothers had earned college degrees, taught classes to fellow inmates, and maintained exemplary prison records for decades. Judge Jessic noted he was moved by supportive letters from prison guards and amazed by the work the brothers had done while incarcerated. For the first time since 1996, parole was possible. Supporters celebrated. The brothers' extended family, aunts, cousins, nieces prepared for possible reunions. After 3.5 decades, freedom seemed within reach. August 21st, 2025. Eric Menendez appeared before the California Parole Board via teleconference from Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility. The hearing was tightly controlled with limited media access, but the verdict was swift and brutal. Parole denied for 3 years. The board cited misbehavior in prison and concerns about public safety. Despite decades of seemingly exemplary conduct, recent infractions had apparently undermined Eric's case. August 23, 2025. Lyle's turn. His first ever parole hearing carried the weight of family expectations and public scrutiny. Adding to the drama, audio from Eric's hearing had mysteriously leaked, infuriating family members and raising questions about procedural fairness. The result was identical: denial. The parole board described traits like rule breaking, minimization, and deception lying beneath a positive surface. After 36 years in prison, Lyle would wait at least 3 more. Both brothers remain incarcerated, their next parole eligibility set for 2028. The story doesn't end with parole denial. In 2023, the brothers' appellate attorneys filed a resentencing petition based on what they called new evidence, corroborating the abuse allegations evidence that wasn't available during the original trials. This new evidence includes a letter Eric allegedly wrote to his cousin 8 months before the murders, describing ongoing sexual abuse by his father. There's also testimony from Roy Rosselló, a former member of the Puerto Rican boy band Menudo, who claims Jose Menendez sexually assaulted him in the 1980s when Jose was an executive at RCA Records. These revelations have reignited debate about the brothers' credibility. Were they telling the truth about the abuse all along? Did the justice system fail 2 traumatized young men? Or are these calculated moves by convicted killers seeking freedom? Modern understanding of childhood sexual abuse and trauma responses supports patterns the brothers described: delayed disclosure, continued relationship with abusers, complex emotional reactions. What seemed implausible in the 1990s appears more credible today. The legal system has evolved too. California's youthful offender laws reflect growing recognition that young brains process trauma and make decisions differently than adult brains. Today, Lyle and Eric Menendez remain in California prisons, their 2028 parole eligibility a distant hope. They've spent more years incarcerated than they lived as free men. They've missed marriages, children, careers, entire lifetimes lost to concrete walls and steel bars. But their story refuses to fade. Each generation discovers the Menendez case anew, interpreting it through contemporary lenses of justice, Trauma and family dysfunction. Are they cold-blooded killers who manipulated public sympathy? Abuse survivors who snapped under unbearable pressure? Perhaps the truth contains elements of both. What remains undeniable is the case's cultural impact. The Menendez brothers forced America to confront uncomfortable questions about family violence, privilege, and the justice system's treatment of abuse claims. They became symbols of wealth's corruption, of justice's blindness, of trauma's lasting power. Their next chapter remains unwritten. California Governor Gavin Newsom holds the rare power to reverse parole decision. New evidence might emerge. Public opinion could shift again. After 36 years, their story continues to evolve. The ultimate question isn't whether Lyle and Eric Menendez deserve freedom, it's whether their case reveals deeper truths about justice, family, and the price of secrets. In a world where abuse often hides behind closed doors and perfect facades, their story remains painfully relevant. Justice may be blind, but history keeps its eyes wide open. And the Menendez brothers' place in that history remains as complex and contested as the crime that made them infamous.